Good morning. My name is Chris Adam with Youth Pledge for Employers. I'm delighted to be joined by Chris, a producer from Crayon. Hello there, Chris.
Hi, Chris. How you doing?
Yes, not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, all good, all good.
Brilliant. Thank you for giving up your time to speak to me this morning. And I guess my start of a 10 question really has to be, can you tell me about Crayon and what it is you do?
Yeah, sure. So Crayon is a two-person film company based in Norwich. We used to be three. We used to be five at one point. Yeah, as the years have gone on, we've sort of we found we can kind of stay a leaner, meaner business and ride kind of different waves such as COVID and and different kind of crises along the way by just keeping ourselves as a smaller business. We make kind of promotional films and training films and information films for a variety of clients across both like the heritage and historic sector and also the education sector, so universities and schools, etc.
Fantastic. That's really interesting. And I guess there must be so much diversity required in a role based on some of the different products you said there and the people who come to you, the clients. As I say, you must, out of it, every day must be completely different in terms of what you're working on, the thought process, and from getting it from, as you say, inquiry to finished product.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you do need to have like a very kind of large range of skills because you need to sort of understand what the client is trying to achieve with their film brief and the best way to go about it, as well as the technical skills of carrying out. And the reason I mentioned that we kind of there's two of us now, but there's three of us and there's five of us, is because people often want to progress their careers by specializing in one of those particular areas, just behind the camera, or just doing the editing, or just working with clients and working on the creative side of it, or another kind of business side of it. Whereas, what I really enjoy personally, and what my colleague really enjoys, is doing a little bit of everything, enjoying doing the camera work, enjoying doing the editing and the creative stuff. So yeah, that's us really.
And how did you sort of get into this? Is it something that started off as a passion, and you, as I say, have sort of just found your way into the industry, or what was your pathway really?
So I mean, at school, when I hit the sort of GCSE level, to be perfectly honest, I wasn't the best behaved student, and that kind of reflected in my attainment, my grades. But when I found a subject I really liked, which was media, suddenly everything became a lot more clearer, and I did get my head down and work hard, and I found somewhere to kind of channel all my energy. As the kind of years went on and I went into the sixth form level and I continued doing that, I kind of decided that I wanted to pursue it at university level too. So I did it at university level, and I mean, I guess for any young filmmaker, you're always thinking that you want to be the next like Christopher Nolan, the next James Cameron, or whoever. You don't think, oh, I'm going to go and be a promotional filmmaker. But as I went through uni, I suddenly started realizing that one, it's very, very rare to get to the point where you can be extremely creative making cinema films, but you can actually be a lot more creative, and you can get there a lot easier making promotional films and kind of short format films in the way we do. I started that off saying one, but I can't think what two and three would be. It's basically just that your creative autonomy is quite inhibited to begin with. If you go into working in a large crew, you might have be a very small cog in a large machine, whereas if you set up a business like ours, you kind of get to do a bit of it, all the things which make filmmaking fun.
And if we talk a little bit about the setting up the business process you said there, I've spoken to a lot of employees in these employer talks, and when you suddenly, as I say, go from doing something that you're passionate about to turning it into your business, you suddenly have to learn a whole different skill set, if you see what I mean. So like, how did you cope with maybe learning new skills that maybe you hadn't had experience of, whether it was the finances, the marketing, the publicity, those kind of things? What kind of new skills did you learn, and how did you go about learning them?
Yeah, you do have to learn a whole different kind of set of skills, because we're filmmakers at the end of the day. We didn't go into it as business people, if that makes sense. Our backgrounds and our interests are in film and not necessarily in the business. although obviously we have to do the business side. And yeah, I think in terms of the finances and let's say like tax side and legal side, we were quite lucky because the university that the other founder went to is in Norwich, is Norwich University of the Arts, and they often universities and colleges have programs where they can offer that kind of support to you, and you can learn about how you keep your bookkeeping and how you record information for tax purposes, etc., or how to just set up, write an invoice or keep an invoice structure and keep folders which are really important for you with important paperwork in. There is advice out there often in kind of educational systems like university or colleges where they can help you with that or offer you free advice or a free workshop. And that's what we did. We really leaned into that. And also we moved into an office to begin with, and the university, Norwich University of the Arts, offered heavily subsidised office rates for graduates. So yeah, we made best use of the support given to us by the university. But you can do that for college as well.
And you touched on earlier about sort of, I say, the route you went through, and I was curious if there's a young person watching this who's maybe considering, as I say, a career in your industry, what kinds of things would you advise them to be doing? So before they maybe go to university or go down those kind of routes, what kind of things can they be doing in their spare time? Whether it's building portfolio or researching certain things, that would actually sort of help them further down the line, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, for my specific business, I think, as we said earlier, how you have to have so many different kind of skills. One of those skills is talking to people and understanding what it is they're trying to achieve. And actually, any customer-facing, customer services role, even if it's just working at a bar or working in a bakery, can be really, really useful. And then actually, you can use those kind of those jobs to springboard the production side. For example, if you work in a bakery or you work in a bar, you could just see, if you've never done a professional film production before, you could just ask the manager or your boss there, do you need like a 30-second, 1-minute promotional film with some lovely shots of the place to stick on your social media? And that can be your first commission. So you get to learn, one, how to deal with people from your job at like a cafe or a bakery, but two, you kind of have the safety netting of making your first film production because it's for your boss who you already know and you know what they're after, and they might pay you, they might pay you £50, they might pay you £0, or it's something you do just to get your foot in the door. But it's good to have your first taste of professional experience rather than throwing yourself in the deep end or getting older and older and wondering, I've never done that yet. I've never done a film production where I've been given the reins to make something. So I think that was something that we did and did really work for us.
That's really, really interesting. And when you were mentioning sort of you've already touched on the importance of sort of communication within the industry, and you mentioned as well how sort of, as you say, with it being sort of just the two of you within the organisation, you get to wear many more hats and do different things, whereas if you were maybe a smaller part of a bigger team within other organisations, I guess that makes communication even more important in terms of if a client is speaking to you, if you see what I mean. As I say, you've got to wear different hats and communicate them in different ways about different parts of the project. And I guess as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, you explain the process. If a client comes to you and says, this is the idea I've got, I guess you, as I say, as the experts, the filmmakers, there's probably a lot of communication has to happen there in terms of actually shaping their original idea into what you think is best.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, when in the early days, you'd always kind of be quite daunted by the fact that a client has a specific idea and you have to work your creative mind within their parameters of their idea. But as time has gone on, I've realized that actually that structure to a creative idea, those parameters are so important and helpful. Otherwise, you can accidentally take your idea towards somewhere which isn't too useful for them. But yeah, sitting down, listening and learning from them is so important. And also, like, I guess when we set up our business at the age of 21, sometimes we felt like we were almost too young to be in the room and be having a conversation about how best this client who has been doing their business for 20 years can use a film to promote themselves. We felt almost like almost fraudulent being in there, kind of suggesting how the best way was to promote themselves. But I think keep it simple to begin with. Just say like, don't make any outrageous claims of what it is your business, if you're a film business or your whatever business, what you can do for someone. Just keep it simple. In your first few years, and then as you get older and you've done, a whole hatful of different productions, then you can start to say, this really worked well for this client, this really worked well for a different client. Where do you see, like, what are you trying to achieve with your film? And you can make suggestions based on what you've already done, and keep your ear to the ground on what similar businesses, I like to call them neighbouring businesses, not competition, because Norwich is a small city and we know all the other filmmakers around, and it's really not like, you compete for the same work, but it's more neighbourly than that. And I think if you keep an eye on whatever sector you're working in, what your neighbouring businesses are doing, then when you are delivering some ideas to your client, you can say, we saw a neighbouring business did this worked really well, we could do something similar, etc., etc. And you can make it work that way.
That's really interesting and really useful inside advice for the young person watching this. So thank you for that. And we've already talked about the variety in this role, and there'll be no 2 days that are the same. So what do the good days look like, within Crayon, and what do the challenging days look like?
So the good days look like a shoot which has gone really, really well, and or getting to go to a different part of the country or see something we would never otherwise get to see. For example, we do a lot of filming for the National Trust, and we went to an island off the coast of Suffolk, which used to be a nuclear weapons testing facility. They didn't explode nuclear weapons there, but they looked at the mechanisms of stuff there, and they did explode a lot of other stuff on this barren island. And we got to go there and get shown around and make this beautiful film on how the National Trust are actually rewilding this whole nuclear facility. So it's a wildlife and rare bird sanctuary. And so we never would have got to see that otherwise. And it was an amazing experience for us. And we do often get to see just a lot of different things that my friends who, perhaps like, have gone into different roles. They sort of work in an office and they do the same thing all the time, but we get to get taken off into loads of different places. So that's always it's really good when a shoot goes well, when the sun's shining and you get some nice shots. That's great. You can't beat that feeling. A challenging day, in our business, there is a deadline culture. You're constantly trying to make films that are delivered on certain days. And people are expecting you to have the work completed at certain days, and you hit some kind of rough patches where you feel like you have to compromise your quality just a little bit in order to meet that deadline. Obviously, you try not to compromise your quality at all, really, but sometimes if you have to get something done by a certain point, and you could make it great if you spent 4 times as long, you can't always do that. So being able to unwind and just finish the day and just say, all right, that deadline has come and gone and I've reached it just, and on to the next one. Being able to fire yourself back up that next day can be pretty tricky.
Again, really insightful, and I can imagine there's a degree of resilience needed, as you sort of said there, for, as you say, sort of constant deadlines coming. Maybe there's sort of demands of the client where maybe you have to change things at the last minute. As you say, maybe you want to shoot on a particular day, but suddenly the weather's awful, all this kind of thing. So I guess to say you need to have that today's a new day, attitude to it.
100%. Yeah. Also I always felt like going through school and through uni and setting up a business, I was always someone who always wanted to give 110% to everything all the time, and I really, really did kind of like throw myself into my studying at school in the end, after I'd gone through my patch of being not very interested, and I did the same at uni, and then I did the same in the early days of the business, and I didn't realise at that point that it's okay to be okay sometimes. You don't have to do everything brilliantly. And I'd never kind of had a setback before. And I remember about 4 years into our business, all of a sudden, yeah, I couldn't keep on top of everything. And it was really, it was the first kind of major bump I felt where I couldn't achieve everything I wanted to achieve. And the best thing to do at that point, and I remember my dad told me it, was I couldn't get out of all my mess of deadline, my tangle of deadlines I was in. But my dad said, why don't you book a holiday in 2 or 3 months where you probably have found your way out of that deadline, and just work towards that, and then just take a holiday. And I think that is probably the best and key advice I hope someone can take home from this chat, is that you could be the person who really just never drops the ball and always wants to do everything perfectly and always throw all their time into it. But actually, in the long run, you do need to say to yourself sometimes, I need to take a holiday. And actually, yeah, that will give you so much more longevity and so much more resilience if you know when to pepper into your year those breaks, because they will, you can't go on forever, like no one can.